Bismillah. Welcome to episode of Real Talk Podcast in the Academy Alive studio. All of our podcasts are available on all of our platforms: Spotify, Twitcher, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and of course, Facebook. Today for episode, welcome back, Kaz.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How are you today?
I'm good. How are you doing, Adrian?
Alhamdulillah.
It's spring. Spring just started.
It's spring,
Yeah.
and you managed to get another day off work.
Let's
join
not
us
talk
in the
about.
studio.
Let's not talk about work. Let's talk about the wonderful guests we've got here today.
Bismillah.
Alhamdulillah, shukran. We got Haji Hassan Goss back with us today from the Gold Coast. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum
Haji Hassan, how
salam.
are you today?
Alhamdulillah, I'm happy to be here, mashallah.
I've got my spring shirt on already. I don't know. You haven't clicked over yet, mate. What's going on?
I've got to look the part. You know?
From last week's episode, I tried not to wear checkered shirts
Yeah,
because
I
last
saw
week we
that.
all wore checkered shirts. So I tried to go with something a little bit different today. And today we have our new guest for episode. We're very, very excited to have Robbie in the studio. Robbie,
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
how are you today?
Very good, brothers. Thank you for having me.
Alhamdulillah, it's very good to have you here. You know, we live in the same area, the community. You know, I just wanted to say this. I've seen you. I've sent my salams to you. I've given you a hug in the masjid. I've also served you at back in the days when I worked in the kebab shop. I know your order. I think it's a salad with chicken and just dressing only.
That's it, no sauces. That's right.
But I've always really wanted to have a chat with you. And Alhamdulillah, today we get the opportunity to have a chat with you. So we're very, very excited to have you in the studio.
Thank you.
And I think that the audience is really going to benefit from having you in the studio as well today.
Inshallah khair.
Okay,
Thank you,
bismillah.
brother.
So, Kaz, you want to start us off?
Yeah, no, definitely. Subhanallah, I had a couple of questions straight up.
Yeah.
You know, subhanallah. I mean, looking at your life as well and reading the information that's out there at the moment. A part of your life you lived in the States, in the United States of America.
Yeah.
What was that like? Give us a bit of a background of what that was like living in the States.
Yeah, America's it's a wonderful place, and the people are far different than I think most of the world would imagine. They're really open people, really welcoming people. They're sort of quick to make you feel like you're part of the family. So when I was young, me and Mum moved over just to go stay with some friends of hers in California for 6 months.
Yeah.
And she ended up sort of falling in love with the place, and we'd ended up going to New York for a visit, and so we extended our stay and moved up to New York, and I just continued my schooling and stuff there. And she ended up meeting an Italian man and remarrying who lived in New Jersey. So we went into New Jersey for another 4 years. So basically all my schooling was more or less done in America. And yeah, it's an interesting place, man.
Do you keep in touch with any of those people that, you know, or friends and family that you made on that side? At all?
I used to when I was still doing social media, but since I've sort of pulled off social media for a lot of good reasons, unfortunately it's cut those ties. But I dare say if I was to jump back on, there'd be a few people waiting to say hello, you know.
Wally, were there any exposure to any Muslims at all in America, or not really, that you can remember now?
Not that I can remember. I mean, I don't remember sort of noticing Islam or Muslims at all, or really thinking much about it until it was sort of became present in my life. It was something I never really considered.
Yeah.
So someone from overseas was just like a foreigner, and you know, I wouldn't have distinguished between a Sikh and a Muslim or anyone else there, mate. Yeah.
Subhanallah.
So have you gone back to the States since?
Yeah, in 2006 I did. I sort of intended to move back there because I still had a green card that was good for a few years.
Oh, wow.
And I'd had like a relationship breakdown here, and I thought I'll go over there and have a fresh start. And it was really good to see everyone over there, but I think being in a state of sort of, I was still a bit emotional and sort of coming to terms with my breakup and everything else. And it was weird, like being in New York, surrounded by millions of people, but feeling so lonely at the same time. I really needed to come home and be around people that knew me. So I only ended up staying there for a few months. But it was great to see everyone that I'd sort of left behind there were doing really well, which is funny because the reason sort of Mum moved me back here when I was a teenager was because she was concerned about the direction I was taking over there.
Yeah.
So we've sort of scurried back to Australia, and then all the kids that were playing up over there sort of ended up doing good, and I came here and just went worse, you know. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
you just sort of you never know what's written for.
So when you say when you went back there, everybody was doing good, but the reason why your mother moved you over here is because you were doing bad. So what like explain on that a little bit more, like.
Well, the kids in the area, the neighbourhood we lived in, there wasn't a lot to do. Like especially in New Jersey, it wasn't like sort of Brisbane City. It was just like suburb after suburb after suburb, and sort of there was like two groups in school. There were the kids who were beating everyone up, and there were kids who were getting beat up, right?
Just like the movies.
Yeah, just like in the movies, exactly. And I was a really small kid. Like I was really undersized. I looked like I was.
Did you say small?
I did say small. I did say small.
Okay.
I look like
Imagine that word actually came out of his mouth. Can you believe it?
I looked like I was 9 years old when I was 13, you know, and so I had to sort of partner up pretty quick with the cool kids, you know, for my own sake. And unfortunately, that came with all the stuff they were doing. You know, there's a lot of drugs getting done and all that sort of thing, and a lot of fighting and all that sort of stuff. And when I look back at it now, I mean, it wasn't good, but it wasn't as bad as what we thought either, you know.
Yeah. Did you have an accent?
I did. I had a full-on New York accent when I came back
no
here
way.
when I was 16.
Yeah.
But the people that were around me, like my cousins and stuff, they used to make fun of me and my accent.
Yeah,
So
I can imagine.
I sort of put the Aussie accent on as much as I could until it became real. And like if I was to talk on the phone to someone now from overseas, I could regress back into that accent pretty quickly.
Yeah.
That's the same thing. You know, it's subhanAllah. Adrian and I actually had this discussion beforehand because I said to him, you know what happens to me? Because obviously, you know, coming from South Africa, when I speak to a Cape Townian, like if we have a chat, my accent will go straight, you know, and if his accent or her accent's strong as well, my accent will go back there straight away.
Isn't that crazy?
Just click over, you know? So it'd be so cool to,
I thought
Robbie.
you sounded like Donald Trump a bit.
Me,
He's from New York, is that right, Robbie?
what are we, 6 minutes into it? The insults have started flowing. Here we go.
Sorry, mate.
I think actually that sounds like too up already.
Yeah.
We're going to keep a bit of a
I thought
tally
it was going to take around at least 9 minutes
Yeah,
before.
we didn't get it.
No, it won't take 9 minutes from me. But Robbie, mashallah, at what year did you accept Islam?
Well, excuse me, Haji, that was in 2012, May, at your mosque on the Gold Coast. I've known you for as long as I've known any other Muslim, that's for sure. You were there at the start of the journey. It was. I'm pretty sure it was May 30th or 31st, 2012.
Yeah.
Mashallah, I thank the Gold Coast for that. That's great.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, we have an asset like you in the community, mashallah. You know, we're in good hands, inshallah.
Alhamdulillah.
Thank you, Jazakallah khair.
So when it came to you in 2004, become Muslim, what was the process of becoming a Muslim?
In terms of like,
Your journey,
journey.
but before you actually came into Islam, took the Shahada.
so everything was like spiraling downhill as quickly as it could be in life. And I think I pretty much hit rock bottom. It felt that way anyway. I mean, I can't imagine things being much worse. And yeah, I just given up on everything. I gave up on myself, gave up on even hoping for something different. I knew that life didn't, was better for other people that made better choices. And I sort of would have loved to have plugged into that, but I just didn't think it was possible anymore. I thought the drugs had me. I thought the lifestyle had me. Sort of a criminal way of thinking and going about life. You know, all these tattoos and things that just really weighed me down. You know, I thought I was mad when I was getting them, and then when you sort of want to unplug yourself from that person or that role or that life, you just can't do it. You know, like you just can't take that face off. So yeah, I was absolutely at the bottom of the barrel, but this all happened at the same time as I sort of began to believe in like a higher power, in God. I was pretty anti-religion in general. I thought that religion was just man making up things to sort of make things easier for us to understand. Yeah. But again, that was my opinion before I knew anything about Islam. So one thing I did commit to when I was at that point in my life was, okay, you're the worst version of yourself. I know what this feels like, and it's pretty bloody horrible. So it's either sort of kill yourself or move forward. and I decided that I would like to know what it sort of felt like to struggle and strive to be the best version or a better version of me.
Yeah.
And I began that journey. And I've read certain hadith. I couldn't quote exactly or give references, but I've read hadith that make reference to the fact that sort of Allah has mercy on the person who decides to struggle and strive to better themselves. And it sort of feels like that's what happened with me. You know, he watched me trying to be better and be different, and just reached out and showed me the way.
A part of that journey was the time that obviously you were arrested and went to prison, right? Give us a little bit of insight in regards to that and how that affected you at that time.
Okay, yeah, well, that was back in 2007, so that was quite a ways before I decided to do anything positive with myself.
Yeah.
But that was just, that's a part and parcel of that lifestyle. It was a negative experience, but it wasn't. It wasn't
completely negative.
It wasn't as bad as it needed to be to slap me around and wake me up and say, time to change, you know.
So when you took the Shahada, can you remember your feelings on that day? Can you remember that?
I can.
Could you feel and explain to the listeners that, was it a relief? Was it something that took a deep breath?
That's a good question, Haj. Yeah, well, I remember very specifically. It was I was having the worst day of my life, and I'd met a cab driver named Mohammed. Yeah. In my travels down the coast a few weeks before that, and he'd given me his number because I said one day I'd like to come and check out the mosque, you know, out of interest. And this day, as I said, I was in a real bad state, and I was flipping through my phone for just a mate to ring or someone to talk to, and I saw his name. And I thought to myself, now's the time, you know, I want to go do this. So I called him up. He picked me up that night for Isha. We went, and the imam was sitting on the far side of the room in the masjid on a little cushion, and I went over and he welcomed me, Imam Imran, and I sat next to him, and he said a few things to me. I wasn't doing any talking. He was just talking, and what was crazy was a lot of the stuff he was saying, the words specifically spoke directly to my heart, and for me were a very big confirmation that you've come to the right place.
Yeah.
And then I watched the men pray, and there was a visitor from Iraq. I think there's a beautiful older brother with a big white beard, and they sat down to read some hadith after the prayer, and he sort of called me over to come sit next to him, and then closer, you know. So I huddled in with him. Excuse me, and he paused during the middle of while he was reading, and he looked at me and he asked me a couple of questions. I can remember him asking me, "Do I believe in God, one God?" And I said, "Yes, of course." And we sort of just launched into the Shahada without me really at the time understanding exactly what the contract was.
Welcome to Islam, buddy.
Yeah.
MashaAllah.
That is awesome.
But I'll say this: when I said those words, it felt like with each word that I said, the earth was quaking. And when I finished giving Shahada, and he put his hand on my shoulder and said, "You're Muslim now," that was the greatest defining moment of my adult life. I knew in that second, unequivocally, without any doubt whatsoever, that this is what I'd been searching for, that everything in my life had led up to that particular moment, and that was where I was supposed to be.
Ameen. Allahu Akbar. MashaAllah. From that time onwards, subhanAllah, you know, as an individual person, you could see the change in that individual person called Robbie.
Yeah.
You could, you know, every time that, you know, we've seen him only just after he took Shahada, you think it was a different person. Forget about the tattoos and the muscles and all that, but the person inside. The person inside, you could see that he was a gentleman.
Yeah.
You know, that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't judge by the looks on the outside.
Yeah.
It's what's in the heart and mind. It's a credit to you.
Jazakallah.
So,
I think, and just another point to come in very quickly as well. You said after the reversion as well, you had stopped drugs immediately. Now, this is going into, I guess, talking about people that are in the situation and have got to go through rehabilitation. They've got to go through, to sort of get them off whatever they're on. That change for you, just give us a little bit of insight in regards to that.
Yeah, that changed immediately. And that is the biggest miracle of all. And anyone that knows me as I used to be, can testify that even someone who doesn't believe in God, I'm sure, would use the word miracle when it comes to the fact that I ended up free from addiction. Basically, we put something going off. That's me too. Oh my goodness. I'm an amateur with this. Yeah, I left the phone on. I'm going to get flayed alive for this afterwards. Please forgive me.
Good.
So no, in clap sound. In terms of drugs, I literally went home from the mosque and just threw out the paraphernalia, threw the pills out, threw the gear out. And I don't know why. No one said to me that day, okay, you're a Muslim now, you got to go and stop drugs. No one said that.
Yeah.
It was just inside me. I'd made a serious commitment, and I knew that Muslims were clean. I knew this wasn't a godly way of living, part of a godly existence, and I just stopped. And there was a couple of setbacks early on in the piece, and it happens. I mean, it's a very hard. When you stop drugs, you've got to abandon the people in your life. You've got to change the circumstances. I was still in a relationship that wasn't healthy.
Yeah.
But November this year will be 7 years clean for me.
Subhanallah. That's amazing.
Yeah, which is absolutely extraordinary.
Yeah.
And for other people, they just. There's always hope, but it feels so totally hopeless, and you can't imagine, as much as you'd like a life without doing all those things, you can't possibly, for some people, they can't picture what that life would even look like, or where to start, or what to aim for.
Yeah.
But you look at the 12-step program, for example, which is successful all over the world, and I mean the core block of that is belief in a higher power.
Yeah. Wow.
So you can understand that having the correct belief in the higher power and understanding God, Allah, correctly for who He is and His attributes, goes a long way to helping that process.
Yeah. You say at the time you were in a relationship, and maybe Haji Hassan can also give us some insight into this from the reverts that you've had experiences with as well. I think for a lot of them, sometimes they think, oh, subhanAllah, I've come across something amazing. I'd love to share this with my partner. How did your partner at the time originally take to it? Could she see that this was not something that was going to work for you guys, or what was the direction there?
She was just not opposed to it.
Yeah.
I think she felt a little bit hurt that I'd made a life-changing decision without even speaking to her, and I see that a lot in reverts that I sort of try and work with. Is that like, wow, okay, we're supposed to be like life partners, and you've just made a life-changing decision, and where am I in this? Like, here you are doing all these good things, and that's great, but you've left me behind.
Yeah.
And that's an understandable thing, and if I could go back and make someone feel a little bit better about that decision, or a little bit more inclusive, for the sake of just doing things the right way, I suppose I would. But we can't. So just in moving forward, I just really hope that that people take their other people's feelings into consideration with that, because it is a big journey. And it's
I'll just add to that.
Yeah.
Robbie's right. I mean, it for someone to take the Shahada and become Muslim, and the partner is either aware or not aware, it's still a big thing for that partner.
Yeah.
Because, as Robbie just said, it's just a whole new direction.
Yeah.
You're going left, now you're going right.
Yeah.
A complete U-turn. And subhanAllah, I've seen it many reverts, that either their mum or dad, either their wife or their husband becomes a big problem.
Yeah.
And some accept and some don't.
Yeah.
I know now, right now, with different situations, that it doesn't work.
Yeah.
I've got cases now that where the husband is not Muslim. Oh, sorry, he was Muslim.
Yeah.
He became Muslim, and she was born Muslim.
Yeah.
They've had their children now. So what has happened now? Because the children now are ready to be educated in Islam, ready to go to school and so on and so forth, eat the right foods and so on. So what happens now? There's a rejection from the husband,
Yeah.
Yeah.
where they don't want them to be brought up as Muslims. They can eat what they want. They can do what they want. So yes, it's there. It's there. But, I think as a community, we need to support both sides of the fence here,
Yeah.
and re-educate the community and the new Muslims to look at their journey and support their journey.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it all comes down to the individual intention. So you've become a Muslim. Before you became a Muslim, when you were living in the US, in your childhood days, was there any attachment to religion at all, or was there any religion in your family?
I was baptised Roman Catholic.
Yes.
And I used to have to go to church with Mum. Not so much when I was a little like a baby, but I think when we moved to the US, I know we used to go to a lot of those evangelical type of places where you'd have sort of rock concert type things and David Hasselhoff looking pastors jumping around the stage and going wild and people getting sort of the zap down the front and convulsing on the floor and talking in tongues. I've seen it all. Mum was never particularly attached to any sort of one denomination of Christianity, and I don't think she was ever really attached to Christianity as such. I mean, all I can remember consistently from Mum throughout me growing up was her telling me to pray. She wanted me to pray to God, pray every night. She prayed for me.
Was that at a stage where she thought that you were going down the wrong path as well?
Long before that.
Long before that.
Long before that. My prayers stopped, quite early on in my adolescence, in my teenage years. Hers never stopped for me, and I mean, she always had different ways of praying and stuff because, again, I mean, she was without guidance. Alhamdulillah, she is Muslim now.
Alhamdulillah.
Oh, mashallah.
Which is extraordinary. She prays 5 times a day. She's fully into it and has been for some time. But yeah, at that time, I mean, she used to, when I was going out running around doing crime and all sorts of things, she would see me for 3 days. She'd be up at night and she'd write little prayers on a piece of paper and have a candle burning while she's asleep and put it underneath the candle and stuff. And I mean, sometimes I really do believe, honestly, that maybe the only reason God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, has shown mercy to me is in answering her prayers, I really, really, truly believe that had a lot to do with it.
I've got a question for you, Robbie.
Yeah.
So your mum became Muslim how long ago?
About 3 months after I did.
Oh, mashallah.
Mashallah, mashallah.
That was the first thing I did was hit her up, yeah.
So was your influence and your change of heart and your change of direction in life showed her that this is what Islam does for you?
Yeah, quite. Look, I think maybe it was I don't know if it was early, there was enough time, water, or enough under the bridge for my change to fully be evident to her. But
What reason?
Well, we spend so much time with our parents without actually talking to them. I mean, I do, and that's something which is really I really need to work on. You spend all these years together with your mother, and you don't have real conversations, and I instigated a very serious conversation with her at that time, and the fact that I was sitting down saying, "Mum, I need to talk to you," was probably stood out just on its own. But I said to her, "Look, I've put you through a lot, and I've asked everything of you, but I've got to ask one more thing of you, and it's the most important thing I'm ever going to ask you." And I said, subhanallah, makes me emotional thinking.
So beautiful. You're making me cry.
Yeah.
This is getting to my heart. That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
But please go on. Take a deep breath.
I said I need to ask. Need to ask you one thing, the most important thing. I said, look, I'm pretty sure I've figured out the way to get to heaven, and I want to make sure that you're there. I want to make sure that you go there. And I said, I found Islam and I want you to become Muslim. And she said, all right, darling. She said, I'll do some reading and I'll think about it and I will consider it very carefully. And I think she spent the next month doing some research. And Brother Shamim from Slacks Creek at the time did a dawah thing for her and invited her over. And she rang me a month later and said, okay, I'm ready. So she said, come over. So I got to witness my mum's shahada. She took it with me.
Mashallah.
Alhamdulillah.
And I think that's a big thing for a lot of reverts that have come into the deen, is especially younger ones that need to deal with parents and things like that. I think, you know, when you're sitting with reverts and talking to them, they always say, oh, subhanAllah, if only my mum, you know, if I can only I can convince my mum or show my mum.
Robbie, you have other brothers and sisters?
I had two older brothers. One of them passed away a long time ago, 15 years ago, I'd say. And I've got one more down the Gold Coast. He'd be 50, early 50s.
Gee, you only look 20.
I know. I hear that every day.
Oh, I wish.
It's usually me telling myself in the mirror. I still hear it. Still counts. So yeah, I've got a brother,
Mashallah.
and he's a very, very Australian guy. You know? He's a tattooist for 35 years. He's a very tough sort of man. He's been through a lot in life, and
is he responsible for any of the ink on your body?
no, actually, my dad told him he'd cut his arms off if he ever tattooed me. So no, not one of these is from my brother. But I'd say he was very much, and maybe to this day would very much be against Islam as a whole. Like he sort of sees Islam coming to Australia and taking over. He sort of sees things that way. And that said, he was very respectful to me personally. He's like, I'm not saying I'm agreeing with your decision, but I'll support you because I'm your brother. So, you know, what more can you ask for, really?
True, that's so true, because, you know, in families, I mean, in these days and probably in the last 10, 15 years, you see that the mother accepts Shahada, but the children don't. But the children do respect, and then vice versa. So, you know, this will happen. And then, of course, for his mother, for Robbie's mother to accept, subhanAllah, you know, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. And it must be heartwarming for you.
It is. You know, I mean, I just don't know. I wouldn't have any peace. I don't think I'd have any peace in my life at all if I just didn't feel comfortable that she's going to be all right in the next world. I don't know how I would come to terms. I don't know if I could be as devout as I am in my faith, if I'd have to sort of if that required me to accept that maybe there wasn't a wonderful ending for her at the end of it. I don't know. Unfortunately, I don't need to know that because God hasn't put me in that position. So I say Alhamdulillah.
SubhanAllah. Robbie, you do extensive work at the jails as well, in the sense that you are a chaplain, so you do go back there from time to time. When you're there, do you sometimes, you know, see yourself in a lot of the guys that you're going to do social work with? Or?
Oh, so much. Yeah, so much. I see, you know, there's so much emptiness, so much sadness in the prisons. Just guys who've just given up on themselves, and beyond that, they haven't got anyone out here in the world that has any hope in them or to encourage them or.
Yeah. And when someone is like that, what do you say to them?
I just look. I tell you what I do honestly, and I keeps going back to mothers. You know, or my mother, you know, like she taught me how to love and how to express my feelings very, very well. And when I was at my worst, let's say I was doing 50 bad things, as long as there was one good thing that I was doing or one good thing about me, she'd only ever focus on that. And so I've sort of carried that with me forward to dealing with these men because they don't have someone unconditionally loving them. A lot of them at home saying, you know what, you're an extraordinary person. There's ABC, which is wonderful about you and makes you unique, and you have potential, and you can do all these
build their esteem.
Great things.
Build their esteem. But I want to clarify something, Robbie. When you visit the jails, are you just visiting Muslim boys?
Look, predominantly, I suppose, but there's so many that I've gone to see, or I'm referred to go see a person through another brother that just needs someone to talk to.
Right.
That's how I started. I wasn't going in there doing dawah as such. I couldn't get approved as a religious visitor because of my own history. So I'd get the name of someone who was in there, someone who I'd met or someone who I hadn't, and just go sit there and say, how you going?
Okay, beautiful. Approximately, and I mean, we should know this, approximately how many of our brothers are in what you see inside, do you know?
Look, if I was to... Queensland Corrections statistics would be different to ours for a number of reasons, but I would say we'd have maybe close between 200, sort of 220, 250 brothers inside in the immediate area in Brisbane prisons, and maybe as far north as Maryborough.
Wow.
But it's increasing every day. I mean, I've seen with my own eyes, I've seen maybe 50 plus people in the last 2 years come to Islam, and that's just guys that I've met. You know, and there's a lot of guys up north and stuff who I haven't, or I've received letters from them, or other brothers have told me they've converted. It's amazing.
One thing on this topic is not just talking about just Muslims, but as a society in general. What do you think is the main reason why people are going down this path? They feel lost. Do they feel? Is my question not clear? But it's like. Why do you think that people will go down that path of just and they can't come back?
Yeah, look, the difficulty coming back, I suppose, is probably a little bit easy to answer. But in terms of why they take that path, I mean, I meet guys who are born into families where the parents are drug addicts, and as soon as that guy is old enough to sort of run around and function as a human being, they've got that kid giving drugs or doing things or even using drugs themselves. I've met people who've been, the parents were shooting them up with heroin as young as 7.
Oh, subhanallah.
I mean, and it's not as isolated as you would think.
Yeah.
You know, one kid is one kid too many, but there's certainly a lot of stories like this. Now, I can't think of a scenario where or how an individual could come in the world through those circumstances and just do the right thing somehow. They'd really need an intervention in life and someone to show them that this isn't what life looks like. This isn't normal. And really help them to see beyond that and find a normal life, a decent life.
Yeah. Understood. I'm more concerned about the Muslim brothers over there. I'll be honest with you. Yeah, of course, in general, correctional, the institutions they're building bigger places because there's more people committing crimes.
But and also on that note as well, we do need to support everybody as well, because everyone goes through their own life journeys. But continue, yeah.
No, that's a fair statement. But I'm with Robbie visiting our brothers. Robbie, do you feel they're being catered for Islamically?
For the most part, absolutely not. No. Look, this journey has been. We initially approached corrections through under the banner of the Islamic Council of Queensland. It was 4 years ago in February, just gone. So 4.5 years ago. At that time, we were promised equitable access. All we asked for was that you give us, our religious visitors, the same access that you do to other Christian chaplains. That's all we asked for. Now, fast forward 2.5 years, we hadn't been given any rights whatsoever. Men were, and to this day in certain prisons, men are punished for praying outside of their cells or praying in congregation. So they'll be threatened with a breach. You'll have men threatened when they come in by guards and staff that you better not be spreading this stuff and recruiting. They see that, I mean, they've got a Channel 10 education in terms of what Islam is or isn't, and they see people congregating and praying as more of like a gang activity than something good. And it's extraordinarily hard to break through those perceptions. We've managed to do it in a number of centres, and it's been great. The guys at the top of Queensland Corrections, the current commissioner, Peter Martin, is a very fair and decent man. And since he's come in, he's been able to give us a crack. And in the last 12 months only, I've had access as a religious visitor and been able to have some sort of freedom in terms of walking around. But look, even prisoners are requesting halal food. It all comes down to the guard that they're dealing with on the day. You'll get the guy take his form with the halal food request and throw it in the bin.
Subhanallah.
So you're telling me that in 2019 that some of the brothers inside aren't permitted to pray?
Not permitted to pray in congregation.
In congregation.
Okay.
Yeah, so what they'll say is, we can unlock your cell. And again, every jail is different, and then every unit within every jail is different depending on what guard is on duty.
Yeah.
So that it's sort of like these little microcosms, these little micro worlds. where the guard on duty on the day is playing God,
Top luck. Yeah.
and it's extraordinary. I mean, you can get a group of guys sitting around doing push-ups together, no problem. You can have a bunch of crims sitting around talking about different ways to cook speed. No one's got any problem with that. But you get 6 guys in a row asking God to forgive them and guide them, and all of a sudden we've got a gang activity and everyone's
Yes.
up in airs and worried.
Yeah.
Even to the extent where you'll get, and again, it's thanks to a Channel 10 education, but you'll have something written in Arabic. It might say Allah.
I think you need to stop saying Channel 10 because I don't think Waleed will be happy with that.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Okay, maybe not Channel 10. Let's say another channel.
Yeah.
If Channel 10 is doing good, then Alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
So, Robbie, do you think Islamic Council should do more by being our representative to represent us through, say, state government in this case, to the correctional centre, to do more to get more access to our boys?
I believe that. Look, I'm sort of at this stage. I'm sort of I'm with the Islamic Council overseeing that particular role, and I don't believe that the council as such or anyone in it can do any more than what's currently being done. We are always, whatever accesses we're given, we're always thanking but asking for more at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're always applying forward pressure. And we're not going to stop asking or stop pushing until we have complete access and complete freedoms to support our brothers in the same way that everyone else can support their own people.
So, Robbie, just going back 6 months ago, what you're feeling, you know what happened in Christchurch,
Yeah.
okay? And I want to put this to you as a brother and as a leader in the community. What's your feelings from what happened, what should be done, and of course with this so-called person in jail? Three questions there, brother.
Yeah, massive.
Yes, because you're here to answer all these questions so our listeners can get some perspective on, what's happening and where we're going.
Yeah, look, Christchurch. I mean, I think it shook us all up in a way that,
I think it shook the world.
in a way that we hadn't really been shaken. And you know what? In a way, I'm saddened by that. I'm sad that I feel sadder about Christchurch than I do about things that are going on in Bangladesh or anywhere else in the world. Like I don't know, and I guess that's the way media is. I mean, they very much manipulate and control what we sort of has access to our hearts at any particular
exactly
point
right.
in
Yeah,
time.
sort of puts a currency on where your emotions should be.
Yeah.
Don't feel for people exactly the same.
Yeah.
Hey, American life is worth a lot more. Australian life is worth a lot more than anyone else. Meanwhile,
100%.
Yeah.
But that said, I can remember that day. I was actually in the prison doing visits at Barallan, and I was in the canteen and I was looking at the TV, and it was all just erupting, and it was saying 5 or 6 dead, and I at that point in time I had no comprehension whatsoever about what was actually happening. It wasn't sinking in. I didn't really understand what had gone on, and then I had to go and lead the Friday khutbah for the for the men there. And so it was when I got home from the prison that afternoon, there was already all this stuff waiting on my WhatsApp. People had sent through the videos that the shooter had put out and stuff. And I sat there on the couch and put one of them on without knowing what I was about to see. And, it was where he's running through shooting people. And my wife came up behind me and she looked over, subhanAllah, she looked over my shoulder and saw it. She just screamed. I'd never heard her sound like that come out of her before. And she just sat next to me and sobbed, and we both sobbed and sobbed and sobbed. And I couldn't look away, and then there was another one, and I refused to watch that. It was just beyond belief.
No, Robbie was right, because I was in Sydney ready to do a function, so I prayed my Jummah in Sydney, and my phone was going off. Normally I would never check my messages until after Jummah in Sydney, right? There was a big crowd there, mashallah. So it just kept on going off. And I said, there's something, they might have had a death in the family or something like that. So I just, on the English bayan, who was giving the English bayan, I just looked and it said, 30 people killed or something like that. No. And then I had to look into it further, and exactly right, someone posted the video and I saw about 10 seconds and that was enough. Yeah, and I couldn't watch it again. Yeah, So Robbie, of course, around the world it was so sad. It was so sad that our brothers going to Friday prayer and this tragic thing happened. Now that this person is in jail, Okay, now they're going to trial him. He says he's not guilty, blah, blah, blah. How do you feel? I mean, this has happened now around the world in a lot of aspects now. Copycats, but not on that big scale,
Yeah.
You believe Islam is under attack because of this white supremacist and all that sort of stuff. How do you...
Oh, look, I think, there's no doubt about it in some aspects, that it being Islam is certainly under fire, under attack, and we as Muslims are, and we're targeted. And again, it's thanks to it's all thanks to the media, and I'm sure there's some very evil puppeteers at the reins of everything. Propagating all this stuff. The world needs a bad guy. Where there's a bad guy, people can come in and take the oil and everything else that belongs to the bad guy, and no one feels bad about it. But look, I mean, the fact that you could go in and do that and then just do a life sentence and get fed and have a sort of comfortable existence doesn't really sit too well with me. I don't know if this particular guy, I mean, I've read a little bit of his manifesto. I wouldn't do him the honour of reading it all, but I read a little bit when it was first released, and it didn't seem to me that his problem was so much focused on Muslims as it just was immigrants, as people of a different colour to him, as people coming from overseas. And I don't know if that's right or wrong. Like I said, I've only looked into it so much to sort of see things from his point of view, but that was my overwhelming feeling.
Yeah.
On that note as well, I just want to say this real quick, is that I feel like a lot of good has also come out of it as well. I feel like there's a new sympathy as well for the Muslim community that has come from this as well. Although the lives lost tragic, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant them Jannatul Firdaus. And in the end, his judgment will be with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
But on saying that as well, subhanAllah, I think I'm going to come in on a completely different angle, as well, to a degree. It's, if you think about it too, subhanAllah, this individual, he's still breathing, and if he's still breathing, subhanAllah, there's technically still hope for him. Who's to say that someone could give him the true dawah, show him the light, and say, listen here, bro, you did this and it was completely wrong, and truly have remorse for what he has done. Islam gives you that opportunity. I mean, subhanAllah, and I don't want to, because I don't have a sheikh sitting at the table with me, but we know in the hadith there was a man that killed, 100 people. And, he still ended up going to Jannah, subhanAllah. So we've always got, I think as Muslims, we've always got that open door policy, regardless of what you've done,
Not too far open for me. Robbie, of course you have a lot to do with federal police. You have a lot to do with ASIO. You have a lot to do with the Queensland Police.
They've had a lot to do with me.
Yeah.
So, Robbie, how do you feel you've been treated? Knowing that, this is a tough question because sometimes these authorities like to keep hacking and keep harassing. So you don't have to answer those questions, but I mean, look.
No, I'd love to.
Yeah. Before he goes into answering that question, Haji Hassan,
Yes.
I've got one more for him. So subhanAllah, so you were everything was all well and good, and then I read somewhere that you got pulled up in a terror raid as well. You got arrested. So can you give us a little bit of insight on that as well?
Hell, you can't. Didn't see that one coming.
That's what the podcast is about.
That was I never in a million years would have thought that would be on the front page of a newspaper with such slanderous things being said. When they did the bookshop raids in what was it, 2000?
Underwood, yeah.
Yeah, at Underwood. They came and they arrested Omar. He's a dear friend of mine, and really really kind, loving father, and just a decent brother to everyone that knows him. And so that was a big heartbreak to know that he was going through all that, and his family was going through all that. And then on top of that, I received a sort of threatening phone call from someone in the federal police one morning. My wife answered the phone and said, "It's the police." I said, "Oh, here we go." So they said, "Oh, we want you to come down and answer some questions about, the guys that are arrested." I said, "I've got nothing to say to you. I've got nothing to say that'd be of interest to you." With, respectfully, I declined to talk to you. And he goes, "Oh, well, if that's the case, I'd be you should be getting a lawyer to call us. And I thought, oh, here we go. So I went and saw a lawyer, and she rang him up, and they're like, look, if he doesn't want to come down and play ball, then we've got evidence of recklessness on his behalf to do with some financial something or other, and, we'll charge him. So it sort of sounded like a bit of a bluff, but anyway, we carried on, and so they said, well, tell him to hand himself in at the watch house the next morning. So we did that, and they've come and charged me with handling. It was like a charge that 5 people in Australian history, they would have been pouring through the legislation for hours and days to find something that they could maybe throw at me. And it was handling money with recklessness to the risk that it may become proceeds of a crime or something like that.
Right.
And in parentheses, Foreign Incursions Act. So more or less they're alleging that some young fella had stolen some money off one of the guys, and that said, look, we need to get this money back. It's for charity. So look, no worries. I contacted the person. He said, yeah, look, I did take the money and I'll do the right thing. He ended up paying it back. There were no threats made, anything like that. And the money came back, and didn't give it a second thought. I was actually really pleased that I had an opportunity to do a good deed, and it didn't get nasty or anything like that. And then all of a sudden they're saying, they're alleging that, you went in there and that money was bound for to send someone to Syria or was going to Syria. So what the world are you talking about? They say, you should have known. I should have known. I don't turn tarot cards over. I'm a Muslim. It's the guys I know. That ask me to help them out. They're not drug dealers or criminals. So why would I think anything nefarious is going on? And anyway, the charge didn't stick. It didn't even go to court. And as soon as the prosecutor saw it, they said to my lawyer, "Look, we got no idea how they're planning on making this stick." And it didn't. But that didn't stop them from putting me all over the paper. And of course, the media puts their spin on it. So it wasn't just. Their version was that I was apparently holding money in an account bound for Syria and something else, and they just fabricate and lie and add mountains upon mountains. But not only that, they use my photo for like the majority of the court case stuff. So in the following months and couple of years, when the boys were going to trial, I'd go to support them, of course, as you do, and they'd use the photo of me walking out of the courtroom. And for the background of the trial, and so in a lot of the ways they framed it,
you didn't look good either.
Yeah, thanks for that. It just made a really terrible thing even worse.
I think that's 3 for Haji Hassan.
Yeah, that's 3-0. That's right. Mashallah.
Mashallah.
But so it was like every time I'd start to feel like things had died down. Then here we go. The guys are going to court again. So there's another photo of me in the bloody paper.
It's so strange as well, Haji Hassan. Before you come in, because one of those phone calls you got easily was probably about 2-3 years ago from me, because I was reading through the paper as well, and I stopped and I went, "What the hell is Robbie doing in the paper?" And then I picked up the phone and I go, "Dude, Robbie, do you know that you're in the paper today?" And he goes, "What are you talking about now?" And I sent him the photo and I said, "Bro, you were in the paper again, And the article had absolutely nothing to do with him. They just used a picture of him, walking out of wherever you're walking out of. I don't know if it was the going to the jail or from the courtroom, whatever it was, and decided, yep, this is the face of this particular artitle.
Everybody take a look at the bad guy. That's
look at the tattoos. Look at the beard. Look at the scary man.
It was trying. Even as recently as about 6 weeks ago, there was something to do with Agim Kourouzi. He'd gone for there was some court date he'd had in relation to something or other, and they used my photo. They used my photo. It was just a photo of me, and in the little snippet underneath it, where it's got the little photo of the camera and it says in the blurb like who this is in the picture, it said Agim Kourouzi. So they made a massive stuff up this time. It was even as direct as it's ever been.
You know what? Before Haji jumps in again as well, I think you need to get an agent, mate. That's what I
start charging him.
Start charging him.
I'll be agent, Robbie. I'm good at money.
Well, I can't afford to sue him, so maybe I can just make some money out of it instead.
Exactly right. Just say, listen, you want to use the photo, here's the fees.
But the media have used my same thing with me.
Oh, subhanAllah, haven't you as well?
Yeah, the same thing.
Oh, no way.
It's been a different subject altogether, but they put my name in the photo there. It's got nothing to do with me. So you are right. You're right, Robbie. They do that.
They do that.
Yeah, and I think once you're out there, I think it's public. It's public property. Yeah.
Yeah, it took some getting used to, and because of course the federal police came and raided my house at the time, and when the arrests were made, when I had to hand myself in, and I thought those days were long gone. I mean, I've been out of the criminal scene for sort of 4 or 5 years by this point. I'm literally dedicating every aspect of my life to doing good stuff and charity work. The last thing I expect is police to be running through my house again.
Hang on.
Okay, Bismillah.
What did you just say? You're out of the criminal scene. You're hanging around with me.
Well, you're the Don. You're on a different level. But everything operates underneath you, so that's right.
But coming back to that, so you're out of the criminal game now, and now you're doing good.
Yeah.
What are you doing now, Robbie?
I do a few things. Alhamdulillah, God's putting me to good use, it seems.
Alhamdulillah.
And hopefully that continues and is the case and becomes more true. But so one thing with MCF, Muslim Charitable Fund, it's a Brisbane-based charity that we predominantly collects zakat and distribute it to local Muslim families in need.
Nice.
Yeah.
They do all sorts of other community projects. I sit on the committee with them and do a number of things, but my primary role with them is to do outreach work in the community wherever it's needed. Usually it's with youth or guys sort of who are maybe coming out of jail and that sort of thing. MCF is a great organisation, and they're sort of Haji here sitting to my left, who was one of the founding members.
MashaAllah.
So he can attribute to the work they do. So that's one thing.
Yeah.
I'm also with the Islamic Council in relation to chaplaincy related stuff. I'm a member of Brothers in Need, so part of the team up here in Queensland, where we go out and feed the homeless a few times a week. And that's a really good organisation. It keeps us busy. And I'm a youth worker with MDA, which is changing their name to Multicultural Australia. But so I'm a part-time youth worker with them and look after youth engagement with newly arrived people to Australia. So I work with young refugees, trying to help them get settled. I sort of work outside the boxes a little bit with these guys. Everyone's really good at finding people work and school and sport and stuff. I try to focus on the ones who are maybe having trouble with getting into a little bit of criminal mischief and pull them up before they get deported, hopefully.
Yeah.
No,
And that was something we had a discussion once at the bakery, and you were saying that you're looking at a program because you're finding that a lot of the Muslim youth that are going down the wrong path tend to be at the forefront sometimes of these activities, and you were looking at maybe putting a program together or starting a program to sort of get them before they go completely hayward.
I think we need to do something like shock therapy for these sort of kids in terms of it's very hard to convince a young person of anything, despite all the wisdom and proofs in the world, they just refuse to accept that that's going to be their lot, But, like in America, they've got programs where you take a young person at risk, you bring them into the jail in a controlled environment. I wouldn't have people jumping up and down and threatening them and stuff like they do in Scared Straight type thing. But, bring them in, show them what prison looks like, let them sit in a cell for 10 minutes on their own, see what that feels like, and introduce them to selected inmates who are serving long sentences for crimes related to what these young people are currently getting into themselves. Now, I've approached corrections about this, and they're like, no, the research shows such and such. Basically, it needs to come from someone else other than me. It needs to. If a politician directs it, it'll happen. If it comes from someone up there and who sits at that table, wherever that is, and whoever those people are, I'm sure it will happen. But if we can show a young person a number of experiences, one, this is what prison looks like. This is one place you'll end up. Two, take them to a mental health facility and let them see what drug-induced psychosis and schizophrenia looks like.
Yeah.
Take them out to the streets and hear the stories of people who are living on the street dealing with addiction every day. Take them to the morgue. Let them see the body of someone who's overdosed. I mean, it sounds extreme, but it needs to be. What they're doing is extremely dangerous.
I 100% agree. That would be my policy too. That what you've just said there, feel it, touch it, see it, and if you like it, mix with it. If you don't, then you know what to do. To put it in reverse and get the hell out of it. Because at the end of the day, what Robbie is saying, that's all reality. It's all reality. People that you see that are in jail, people that have overdosed with drugs, people that are sitting in the morgue, that's a reality. That's what's happening right now, today.
Agreed. I mean, there's just the reality is it can take many different directions, but those directions all lead to those places we just mentioned. There's nowhere else. Either you stop or it's one of these places.
You need that shock therapy.
Yeah.
And we may not understand that, but they will understand that because when they see it, feel it, touch it.
Yeah, it's creating experience.
Yes.
Creating experience.
Yeah.
You're right.
Because I also feel like a lot of people they have two thoughts in their mind. I want to change, but I can't change. And I think showing them that also allows them the ability to kind of take that extra step toward change as well.
Robbie, you hang with who? You know some of the youth, between Brisbane and Gold Coast.
Sure.
And, they all respect me too, right?
They do.
And they'll open up to you. And they all want to be miniature gangsters.
Yeah.
Miniature gangsters. Am I right or wrong?
Yeah, it's a disease, yeah.
And he's doing it and he's got those Nikes on and he's got that great Armani shirt and so on and so forth. They all want it. How they get it, they don't care. Am I right, Rob?
100%.
And they want that Rolex, and they want that Lambo. How they get it is they don't care. Now, of course, we have, in our own people too, that are encouraging to do things to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where they're feathering their own nest, and they're taking the cream off the cake. Am I right or wrong?
100%.
And it's happening here, yeah. I'm not going to open up too much on that, but it's there. And I think Robbie knows some elements. I know some elements, right? And I know exactly what's going on, trust me. And I think Robbie knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
How we fix this problem, do you cut the snake up at the head? Maybe. It depends.
Yeah, there's so many layers.
That's right.
Yeah.
There's so many layers. It's like, what do I tackle? And, it's working in the space that I do, and certainly a lot of stuff that Huss does, working with people who are addicted and afflicted, you feel like you're just mopping up puddles in the floor, and you look up and you can see where it's coming from in the hole in the roof, and yet we still don't climb up there and plug it up, or we don't attempt to, and you sort of feel, I feel like a bit useless, a bit weak sometimes, thinking, man,
You
is
feel
this
like
what
you're
I'm going
useless?
to do forever?
Did you say you feel like you're useless?
I feel like I'm useless. Yeah.
Buddy, you are.
Robbie.
Sorry, Robbie.
That's 4-0 now.
That's four. Robbie. You got it.
I wasn't expecting that one though. That was
The only way I can get one up on this bloke is if he loses his voice one day. I'll come in and rain down on you.
I love it. He can
Love
take
you
it.
too.
He can take it, yeah.
But you know what I mean.
Yeah,
But
100%,
but then
100%.
I think too, there was the story that Sheck said down the Gold Coast once, and it's told the story of a little bird. There's a big forest fire raging. There's a little bird go to the lake and fill its beak with water and go and drop a little bit of water on the fire and fly back and forth. It was doing it all day, and the other animals were laughing at it. What's the point? And so one of the elephants stopped him on his way back from the fire, and he said, "What are you doing? Why are you wasting your time?" And he said, "I'm doing as much as I can. I'm doing everything I can." So I think that identifying, doing what we can. Understanding there's these bigger issues and there's the mouth of the river, so to speak, where certain things are coming from. I may not have the capacity to deal with that at the moment, or we may not have the capacity to deal with it. We have the capacity to help people who want to change.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we do have the capacity to do more than what we're doing. In my lifetime, I'd like to see that. I'd like to see a lot of change in this space.
And subhanAllah, you use that word useless. SubhanAllah, I think we all agree at the table that
you've done so much
You're
for the
doing
community.
amazing work. You know what I mean? And just keep up that good work.
We need many Robbies.
yeah.
Yes,
We need
definitely.
many Robbies.
Yeah.
And I hope, Robbie, that not saying you're old, but I hope that you have good people beside you.
Yeah. I mean,
that you can mentor.
Yeah.
That can eat, breathe, sleep with you in a sense where they can learn the craft. This thing doesn't come by a book.
Yeah.
This comes by being on the ground. Am I right, Robbie?
Yeah.
Jazakallah khair. You've got to just do it. I mean, there's brother Shav in Sydney. Shav.
Yes.
Shav Homsi.
Yes. Yeah.
This guy is he's the next level. I do nothing compared to this man. I'm telling you. Just the things are just extraordinary. When you put yourself out there, community, and say, "Give me your dramas," I mean, they come. But the stuff that this guy deals with, I mean, I can't even repeat on radio. But
Yeah.
he knows, I know, and we know. It's a very interesting space to work in. It's very rewarding because a lot of the charity stuff the fruits aren't necessarily immediate or abundant in what we can see. You know, we're sort of waiting for the hereafter to really see what impact we've had. But in this space of sort of reaching out to people who are sort of really destitute or really in the on the bones of their bum, so to speak, you do get to see
Robbie,
the fruits.
I wouldn't say that. I have seen some of the product that's come from you,
MashaAllah.
MashaAllah.
and I'm talking about human beings,
Yeah.
that subhanAllah, their lives are changed.
Yeah.
I have seen that myself. I'm not going to make getting you a big head. He's got a big head already. but I want to say I have seen.
It's rolling around on my shoulders.
I have seen. Literally.
Literally, yeah.
I've seen some of the product that's come from Robbie. That boys have changed.
Yes.
They have changed.
Yes.
You know what he has done. And I'm not building him up. I'm just giving you basic thoughts that what I have seen him done, what he has proven that the water is dripping on the rock.
Yeah.
It'll crack one day, inshallah.
Inshallah.
But we want it to drip.
Yeah.
We want it to drip. And then, like at the end of the day, if we don't do it, what are the consequences?
Yeah.
Am I right or wrong?
Yeah. 100%.
So alhamdulillah, by the grace of Allah, Allah's given him strength, given him some knowledge, given him a direction. Everyone is different around this table here. He's different, I'm different. But like I said last week, we can be united.
Yes.
Yeah.
When the time comes, we can be united, and we can work on something together when it's needed.
You know that program we ran when we had that camp, Robbie. You came down to the camp where Brother Shav was present. I think you just came for the day or something, didn't you?
Bornhofen, yeah.
Oh yeah, subhanallah, man. I attended and I just wanted to be one of the kids there, But they said, no, sorry, mate, you got to be one of the leaders. I'm like, leaders?
What's that look like? Yeah.
What is that? What do you have to do? He goes, oh, you just need to look after this group of kids. And alhamdulillah, it was an amazing camp. SubhanAllah, Brother Shav got to tell his story. And in the room that night, I don't think there was not one person that was not crying or in tears there. I mean, SubhanAllah, he has explicitly said we're not allowed to tell that story outside of the room. But do you think events like that where, you can get a group of young gentlemen, young men into a room and, just give them a bit of exposure? SubhanAllah, I think you brought someone to that camp that was just recently out of prison as well.
Yeah.
I'm sort of refreshing your memory now.
Yeah, no, that was young Jesse, and I say his name because I know he won't mind me saying his name.
Yeah.
And he was just like, this is a guy who's sort of been in and out of the system from a very young age.
Yeah.
Extraordinary young man, the humongous heart. Made some pretty bad decisions. Some silly decisions that he had to pay for, and he was sort of fresh out. I met him inside, and he was just someone who was just screaming out to be supported and just really wanted to change, but didn't know what that looked like or how to get there. And when I met him inside, I made him a bunch of promises, what my commitment to him. One of the things I said to him was, mate, we'll get you talking to other young people and they will benefit from your story. And that's exactly what, he did. We came to that camp. I don't think I gave him any notice. We just sort of sprung it at him on the day. Like, mate, can you get up on stage and tell your story? And he did, and it was so heartfelt and sincere. And it was his first time ever speaking to a group of people, and he did such a good job. And so many of the young guys pulled him up afterwards and sat down and had questions for him and wanted to share stuff with him. It was wonderful.
What the amazing thing about that camp, Haji Hassan, was that we came there. We had activities planned like basketball and swimming and all that. It rained, right? For the whole camp, so we had to do everything indoors, and it kept everyone together. And subhanallah, we really got to experience each other's company, and obviously get to share stories and all sorts of things.
Robbie, do you feel like, especially with a lot of those boys, they're all a bit shy? You feel that they're a bit not outgoing?
The lads who are coming out,
who get in a bit of trouble and so on. So you feel that?
Yeah, definitely.
To me, that's what I see.
Yeah.
They're not, like, I'm a bit outspoken, and mashallah, you're outspoken a bit.
At the same token, I think
that's what I identify. Tell me if I'm wrong. You please.
No, I agree with you because they've come from a world where you dress up, you got a certain uniform. As I said, that's often comes a lot of tattoos and this certain image, and then you don't want to be that guy, and so now you can't even get a job. You can't go for an interview. It's like you're
constantly reminded.
Yeah, you're constantly reminded, and you're so helpless in terms of trying to make forward steps with your own life, and that's a terrible feeling. I mean, when I wanted to get back into life, I would go for. When I was a young guy, any job I could get, was interviewed for, I'd get. You know, when I was like in my early 20s, before I took things too far, but. And then going from that to not being able to get a job driving a truck because of my criminal history, or walking in and seeing the look on someone's face when they see me, and just no. I lacked all confidence completely in putting myself forward for anything, so I didn't even bother trying anymore.
Yeah.
And that's where these guys are at. They know it's a no before they even walk in for the interview, so why bother? You know, and you've got all these people going, come on, brother, you're doing well, do good things, and they're like, yeah, but I got to feed my family, and the money's not falling from the sky here. What am I supposed to do? True. We've got to provide solutions for these guys. This is where it's for us to bring, you know, these solutions to them and really carry them through that process, because it's a lot drop off at that point, you know, a lot drop off.
Subhanallah. So, like, what would you say? Okay, we're gonna wrap it up soon, but what's our next step as a community as a whole? I know you mentioned there's like multi-layers, but right now, what would you say is the next step as a community as a whole? Because
I think with this platform as well, I think awareness, you know, just to make
awareness
first. Awareness is always a good start to say, listen, you know, there is a situation out there. We've got so many reverts in the jail to begin with. You know what I mean? People are coming out. You know, when they come out of the jail, we want them to stay in Islam. We don't want them to like, all right, I'm out. Let me, exit stage.
I'd like to answer that.
Yeah. And Robbie can
back me on this. Don't judge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would that be fair?
Yeah, that's fair. I've had to learn that too.
Yeah. Don't judge the person.
Yeah.
Don't judge a book by its cover. You'll be always wrong.
Yeah.
I've learned that, and I know that.
Yeah.
And I think, Robbie, you've been around, you've seen that.
Yeah.
You know, look for the worst person and pick him up.
Yeah.
Mashallah.
Mashallah.
I agree with you 110%, Haj. 110%. I'm going to steal a phrase from a brother, but I'm going to name the brother who said it, so I'm not really stealing it as giving him credit for it.
You're not allowed to steal in Islam.
There's a brother now. I'm going to borrow. I'm going to borrow and I'm not going to give it back. There's a brother named Musa. He's an African brother who does extraordinary things with the young, especially particularly African brothers around the Caribbean area and stuff. He's coaches and mentors on basketball.
Yeah,
that guy,
Musa,
Musa Touré.
Yeah.
And this is a phrase that he came up with, and it's each one teach one.
No,
and I love it. Each one teach one. If we as individuals, mentoring is where it's at. Yeah. These young guys, you can't get a room full of people, and there's no words on this earth that you can wrap up or deliver to them in a way that's going to leave them or walk out and change. You've got to work with an individual, and he or she is not going to work with you until they trust you and know that you love them sincerely.
Yeah.
Once you've established that relationship, then and only then will they trust you to take advice from you. But again, it's only going to come when they're ready for it and they ask for it. So you want to be that person that they're going to call up one day and say, "Uncle, I've had enough. Help me." You know, but you got to put in the time and effort to do that. I can only reach out to so many people. You guys can only reach out to so many people. If all of us in the community, if know one young person who isn't doing so well, be that person. All you have to do is pick up the phone, call them twice a week, and say, "How you doing today?" Show an interest. How's your school going? You know, how are you doing that subject? Can I come down to your next your next event at school and support you? You know, it's not hard.
Yeah,
it's not hard. Show an interest in them, know what they're doing in their life, and be a friend to them. And being an older friend with wisdom and sharing it with them. I mean, that's what mentoring is, right?
Yeah.
And if they accept you and you accept them, wonderful. Each one teach one. You know. Thanks for that, Musa.
Awesome.
Robbie, I want to make a challenge there.
Okay.
You think we could get 100 youth together? Troubled youth or just youth in general?
If the food's good enough.
Well, hang on. Let's put it out there, and not now, and in the coming months.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's get 100 youth, 120, 130 youth. Let's get them together. Let's put a dinner on, and we'll speak to them, talk to them in general, and just put that little bit of a seed there now and then to say, this is not good, this is good. What do you think?
I'm
Let's do it at Michael's Rest, something like that. Let's get a date.
Inshallah.
If it's going to cost us 3,000 or 4,000 or whatever, we'll find it. Eventually we'll find it. I want to put the challenge out there. you be part of it, I'll be part of it, and the boys will be part of it.
Alhamdulillah.
Academy Alive will be part of it. I know they will.
Haji, doesn't the Gold Coast have a nice community centre we could use?
We've
instead
got a
of
community centre,
Michael's Oriental?
but maybe we'll do too. Who knows?
Don't you know somebody by the name of Haji Hassan
I
Baba
wanna
that
just
would
wanna
like
walk
to
in, walk out.
cook for us?
You know.
I'm keen. 100%.
What do you think, Rob?
Yeah,
Let's aim for
100%.
it. Inshallah, let's
Okay,
try it.
inshallah. So that's a good thing. And when we get all these brothers and maybe some sisters that need some support, bring them into the room, and nothing too heavy.
Yeah.
We don't want to bash them. We want to encourage them and lift them up.
Yeah.
And I think doing that, they'll make them feel good. What do you think?
I think anything is worth having a crack at, and I think it's a wonderful idea.
Are we gonna do it?
That's come into my head. You support it.
We'll support it.
And Academy Alive will support it, inshallah. We'll find the money. Don't worry about the money. We just need to get the boys together, inshallah, and the brothers
Inshallah.
and sisters together. Only youth.
Yeah.
Only youth. Okay?
What's the cut-off age?
A cut-off
40,
age like me,
40?
32.
Wow,
32 down,
Wow.
of course, you know.
that's a lie, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
It's actually 34.
Love you, mate. Love you.
No, bismillah.
Yeah.
Jazakumullah khair. Honestly, the main reason of this podcast is to get everyone's individual story out there. And what Haji Hassan has just basically announced us there, it will be in the descriptions below, and we'll make sure that everyone's invited. We'll give everybody ample notice. But first, you want to say thank you very much. Jazakallah khair, Robbie.
Thank you very much. Wayakum. And can I just put something out there as well to the community?
Bismillah.
If there's parents out there, if there's young people, if there's someone really struggling, they just don't know what to do, how to get back to life, are they concerned for their young ones, reach out to us, you know, and if I can help directly, I will. If I can't, there are people out there who are just would love to be plugged into young people, or whether you're young or old, it doesn't matter. If you're really not doing so well, make a phone call, because you know, your community loves you, and there's so many people in the community that care for will care for each other, and just looking for an opportunity to reach out and help people through the harder times, inshallah.
Can we get Robbie's number on the
Yeah,
podcast
no,
or
100%.
something?
Robbie's number will be in the contact below. And if you want to contact us directly, we're more than happy to put you onto Robbie as well.
Jazakallah khair.
Once again, beautiful story.
Thank you, brother.
Beautiful man. Appreciate everything that you've done. You come on. It's very hard to come in front of three guys and some microphones and to kind of have a chat.
Especially when they all beat me up on the way here.
Oh, subhanAllah.
I had to run the gauntlet.
I think it was 5-0.
I'm a loving guy, Robbie. Please.
Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Give him a salam.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.